Well, Mama said there would be days like this. The Toronto Raptors go into Boston as 16.5 underdogs, and they severely outperform. Undermanned, as always. The injury list remains the same. Every player that was out last night was out tonight. And what you had was a very competitive, down to the wire loss, very controversial, with a ton of, let's say, questionable non calls on the referee's part. I hope Darko Rajakovic is planning on picking up a couple of fines tonight because I think he should. And I think he'd have a case. There was a lot of free throws that the Raptors missed. There were a couple of really ugly turnovers. There was a foul before the inbound by Davion Mitchell. There were a couple of really forced possessions by RJ Barrett that didn't yield much. But there's a lot to take from tonight's game that's really positive. Let's start with RJ Barrett. Shredded Jaylen Brown consistently got to the front of the rim and ripped apart their defense to the tune of his first career triple double. That's very encouraging. We said earlier, well, at least I said earlier, that what he was doing against weaker defenses, it would be interesting to see what he would do against a stronger defense. The Boston Celtics are one of the better defenses. I don't think they played like it tonight, but credit to the Raptors where credit is due. They routinely ripped them apart. It was RJ Barrett to shooters, RJ Barrett to Jakob Poeltl, little pocket passes, little drop passes to Jakob Poeltl all night. He shredded them. Honestly, it looked a little bit like LeBron-esque at times, the way he was able to punish their defensive woes and miscommunications. The Celtics were cold. They were cold for the majority of the night, but they kept taking them in typical Celtic fashion. They had a really ton of chances to win this game. The Celtics did, but the Raptors had a chance to win this game too. And that's where those free throws come in. The Raptors are a bit of a comedy of errors in a sense because they find new and interesting ways to lose every single night. If it's not at the foul line, it's through a technical free throw. If it's not through a technical free throw, it's through an offensive foul. If it's not through an offensive foul, I mean, I'm curious if at some point the Raptors are about to win and Darko just burns a timeout that he doesn't have just to keep the tank rolling. There are no moral victories in the NBA. A loss is a loss. The Raptors do move to 2-12. That's what was supposed to happen. They were not supposed to take this game to OT. But there's one person who said this game could be really close, and that was me. Prior to the game, I spoke at length on X about how the Celtics have this nasty habit of playing down to their competition, and they've been doing it for years. This is a team that lost. This is a team that went to OT against Brooklyn. This is a team that has lost to Atlanta. This is a team that just simply put does not engage well when they don't respect the competition. Jaylen Brown himself said in the offseason, oh, well, no disrespect to the Detroit or whatever, but, that might be a night we let Peyton Pritchard get off. This is a team that clearly does not respect the Toronto Raptors, but I hope they do after tonight. It wasn't all RJ Barrett. It was a competent, very good game, actually, from Chris Boucher. Loved what Chris Boucher brought, including those two brilliant threes that were very needed when the Raptors were just teetering. A lot of film to break down today. A lot. And we had Scottie Barnes looking like, I don't know, Men in Black / Neo out there. That was pretty cool too. Give me a W for Scottie's fit. Let's take a look at what happened in this game. 123-126. The Raptors beat them in each quarter in the second half, 31-30 and 29-28, and then lost 12-9 in overtime. If you take out that ugly stretch to start the game where the Raptors looked absolutely lost, this was a nail biter. And it really had no business being a nail biter. The Raptors are super undermanned. They're on the road. They played last night. The Celtics were up by 10 very early, but it was pretty much lead change throughout. Take a look at the team stats. The Raptors got 35 assists. You remember that mark 30 assists that we keep talking about? Well, the Raptors had 20 assists last night. They had 35 tonight, and you see the difference. They shot 41% from the field and 39% from three. They played about as well as you can offensively. And defensively, they really put together a pretty competent game, too. Yeah, there were a lot of mistakes, and a lot of the misses were really just the Boston Celtics. Nemes Keita just missing a drop in the rim, which we're going to look at. Uh, Threes being taken just brick after brick after brick, but they're open threes, and you knew at some point they were going to go down, but they just never went down. The Celtics shoot 34% from three, 44% from the line. Sorry, 44% from the field, but they shot 17 for 19 from the line. The Raptors, despite getting to the line more than the Celtics because they attacked 100 times more than the Celtics, they missed 7 free throws, including a lot of big ones from RJ Barrett down the stretch. And unfortunately, that was the game. 76 points in the paint for the Raptors. They lived in the paint, and they led by as much as 7. That's crazy. The Raptors also lose the stocks battle. So the Boston Celtics got 6 blocks tonight. Let's take a look at the box score. This was a very interesting one. And hold on, let me stretch this out a little bit here. Stretch. What is going on here? Here we go. 35 points for Jakob Poeltl to go along with 12 rebounds. Jack Armstrong said this is the best he's ever seen Jakob Poeltl play. I vehemently disagree with that, but I understand why he thinks so. 16 for 19, he abused the Celtics, abused them tonight. RJ Barrett, 25 points, 27 shots, 15 assists, 10 rebounds. There's a lot to like about RJ's performance. There's a lot not to like about RJ's performance. The what you like is the passing. That was the best part of his game. And it's something that I've been glowing about all season, that his growth as a passer has been so much better. He is making good, simple, connective reads, beating his man, getting into the paint, drawing 2 defenders, beating Jaylen Brown, and just kicking it out to corner shooters, movement shooters, Jakob Poeltl. And he's mapping the floor much better than he has at any point in his career. The 10 for 27 and the 4 for 9 from the free throw line, I could live without that. I have said many times that I don't think there's a big gap between RJ Barrett and guys like Cade Cunningham and Jaylen Brown, and I'm going to stick with it. They're all very similar in terms of their archetype, but I think RJ is starting to become a much, much, much more competent passer than I could have ever expected. He was +3 in a game that his team lost by 3, so go figure that. Jamal Shad had some really good moments as well. I think he was very assertive tonight. Jonathan Mobo, competent defensively. I think it was overall Bruno Fernando. He had a lot of gaffes in this game. He had a couple of turnovers. It's just, again, 2 turnovers for a guy who plays 9 minutes and barely ever handles the basketball, but some of them were just flagrant. Ochai Agbaji and Grady Dick struggled back-to-back nights, right? Ochai hit a couple threes late, but 3 for 8 from 3 for Ochai, who is currently walking in, almost shooting 50% from 3, 46%, 44%, 46%, and leading the team in true shooting. Tonight, he goes 5 for 13, missed a lot of gimmies at the rim. Grady had the night from hell, right? Failing to get into double digits, 9 points in 37 minutes played. But it was not for naught. If you look at this, and you might think Grady had a terrible game, but I thought Grady was a good passer tonight. He had 5 assists. I don't necessarily think he had the most competent defensive possessions. There were a couple times where he just got beat clean. And I got to tell you, like, they zeroed in on him like you would not believe. They really zoned in on him. They were just not going to let him get off. They were like anyone but him. And it allowed everybody else to flourish with him on the court. And, you got one for one from Jamison Battle, 3 points, and a really sweet dime to Chris Boucher on that extra pass as well. On the Celtics side, you got a ton of abysmal shooting performances, including, I really felt Jaylen Brown was worse than this. Wasn't he? No. He had 27 points, 7 assists. It didn't feel like it, though. 8 for 16. Jason Tatum went 7 for 19, including the huge 3 to end the game at the buzzer. He had a near triple-double as well, 24 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists. This is actually the second time in 3 games that he has narrowly missed a triple-double by by one stat. I think the last time it was by one rebound. Now it's by one assist. That's very interesting. He is really having, I wouldn't say an MVP season, but he is having something close to it. Sam Hauser was great off the bench. I think overall just provided a lot of scoring for them. Luke Cornett got abused tonight defensively. Jamal Shed went at him, RJ went at him, like Chris Boucher went at him, like everybody went at him. And, kudos to you. We turned the water off on Peyton Pritchard, whose only two threes literally came within a minute of each other. The rest of the 23 minutes he played, he did not score. And so good job for Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell had some competent stretches in this game as well. 4 for 5 from 3, 0 turnovers, 5 assists, 10 points. This is competent role player point guard production. That's not what we're used to from Davion Mitchell. We're used to, 2 for 11 or 1 for 7, 4 turnovers type of performances. So good job by Davion Mitchell tonight, just kind of keeping it together. Tough play down the stretch, and naturally defenses are going to be what they're going to be in terms of respecting him. But yeah, I think that was tough. Okay, let me remove this and let's get to the film study because this is going to be interesting. Okay. How are y'all feeling? Y'all feeling good? Y'all feeling terrible? I don't know. I mean, it gives you an idea of what this team can be, doesn't it? This was one of the first plays, that was successful for the Raptors. Really nice pass from Grady. It would not be the first time that he would find RJ Barrett. And, I feel like things like this really get your teammates going. And I think this really got RJ going. The aforementioned Bruno Fernando with some Fernandoisms. This is a term I have coined. Don't you dare steal it. I copyright it. They are Fernandoisms because I don't think anybody else can do these things but Bruno Fernando. So they are of his own. And do you remember that little Jeopardy music theme that we had yesterday? Well, pretty much an identical play today, except he doesn't travel. He just throws the ball to Al Horford. There's a word. Okay. This is a flop by Jason Tatum. And this made me so mad that Jamal Shed does not hit him at all. He's just barely passing by him. He kicks his leg out and he goes to the line. And shit like this really needs to be cut out of the NBA. All right, some competent play from Jamal Shed. And he needs to do more of this, man. Yak is so great at freeing up his guards. And here, he's tried this a few times. But what's interesting? He's been sort of tossing it at the basket. This time he sort of floats it into the basket. I have not found that his touch is very soft or that he gets enough arc, but this is clearly something they're working on with him. So that just looks a lot better for me. And here, the defense is going to sag off, get lost a little bit, side contest, good contest by Peyton Pritchard, but better shot by Jamal Shed. And Jamal Shed was a really big part of that turnaround early. I think he really changed the momentum of this game with a couple really big plays. Now, I wrote Jaylen Brown is so overrated, and I just feel that way. I feel like a lot of people who debate Jaylen Brown versus Jason Tatum just really don't understand basketball. But, what is this? I couldn't understand what the controversy was, and then I slowed it down, and it's just how is that not a travel? That's clearly a travel. Okay, Jonathan Mobo comes at him. If you're not going to call a foul, that's a travel, right? You can't just wash it. This was a great. I don't think I've seen RJ Barrett do this twice in his Raptor career, but look at this contest from RJ. And he's going to tip that, which is awesome. He tipped it. He tipped that. I was shocked. I was I couldn't believe it. That was great. That was a great play from RJ Barrett. And speaking of great plays from RJ Barrett, look at this behind the back dime to Jakob Poeltl. Again, draws the defender, Derek White. Luke Cornett, just I don't know what Luke Cornett is doing, but that's the easiest shot of Jakob Poeltl's life. Great pass by RJ Barrett, man. Broke the defense down. Okay, these are the back-to-back threes by Peyton Pritchard. And, again, kind of shakes RJ Barrett here. And there's that lack of lateral quickness we sometimes talk about, but decent contest, just not enough for a 43% three-point shooter. And this next play, this really drove me crazy because this is a man advantage. It's like a power play. Bruno Fernando trying to dive out of bounds here. You'll see Bruno Fernando at the top right of your bottom right of your screen there. And so here we go. Peyton Pritchard sees the advantage. He's seeing that Jaylen Brown is a trailer here, but doesn't pass him the basketball. And everyone is covered except for the clearly best shooter on the court who's wide open. And Bruno Fernando just has a Bruno Fernandoism, right? Just does not know what he's doing here. I mean, he could have gotten back in this play. If you can get here, I don't know who you're, and then he just realizes like, oh wait, was that my man? Yes, yes, Bruno Fernando, that was your man. Jeez, that was frustrating because that felt like, the Celtics were on the ropes. They were down by 7, and suddenly it's like a 1-point game, and you're just losing momentum. And it's back-to-back threes for Peyton Pritchard, and you're like, shit, can that get them going? All right. Now, my question on this is, how does this happen? Right? Like, this is such a miscommunication. Now, you could say clearly there's miscommunication here because there's no way that Ochai Agbaji has to tag the corner after guarding Jason Tatum. They just overhelped on Tatum and then left to a wide open jump shot there for Jordan Walsh. Now, this decision I did not understand. I mean, it's the third quarter, it's 53 seconds to go. You're in the bonus, and RJ Barrett is just close. Like, why? How? Why? What? I didn't understand this. Why foul and put him at the line? Like, this is not a scheme thing. This is an intentional foul, and I did not understand this at all. And again, game is right in the balance, 83, 85, 84. And you got to realize, you go to overtime, that means everything is a game of inches. And speaking of a game of inches, this is a game of inches because this is a foul. Okay? That is a foul on Jordan Walsh. 100,000% every single time that's a foul. And they don't count this dunk either. So they don't look the other way on the dunk. But take a look at that foul. That is such a clear foul, which would have put Grady at the line for 3. And he's a fantastic free throw shooter, shoots nearly 90% from 3. And you just I thought the NBA was supposed to protect shooters. I guess it doesn't, we don't protect shooters. He hits his wrist. He clearly hits his wrist. I mean, look at how short this jump shot was going to be. You think Grady airballed it? Are you insane? Like, it's such a, I'm sorry. This is robbery if there ever was one, and that deserves to be investigated. Like, this is crazy. Now, this is the first of the Boucher, let's call it momentum. Not the first, but one of the big ones, right? He just finds a way, man. Sometimes he finds a way. You see the defensive issues with Boucher sometimes. You see some of the shot selection issues, but then you see plays like this and you're like, man, I wish he could just do what works. I feel the same way about RJ Barrett. Like, I wish you could just do what works and do less of what doesn't work because it's so obvious what works and what doesn't work. And this is what works. Ball movement. This might be the most, like, Darko Rajakovic is very happy with this possession. I'll guarantee it. So RJ Barrett is going to break down Jaylen Brown for what felt like the 150th time this game. He's going to get into the paint, draw the second defender, going to pass out to Chris Boucher. Boucher is going to make the very quick pass to Jamison Battle, who is, by the way, a three-point shooter. So Nemes Keita has to close out, really out of control. And now, because he's open, Sam Hauser closes out on him, which results in a beautifully wide open Chris Boucher. That's beautiful basketball. You'll love to see it. And as if it wasn't good enough to do it on the right side of the floor, here's RJ Barrett finding Chris Boucher on the left side of the floor. And That's some Canadian to Canadian connection there. So that was cool. Now, this is the first, well, probably the sixth questionable shot by RJ Barrett tonight. And I just, it's not about whether this goes in or not. This is just a tough shot. It's an inefficient shot. You got Ochai Baji, who's wide open right now. You got Chris Boucher, who could conceivably, you got 5 seconds on the clock. You could probably take this guy to the rim. This is just one of those AAU bad habit high school shots that you just don't need to be taking when you're pretty cold from the field at that point. It's not like you're blistering hot. This is not a game where you're like 6 for 7 from 3 and this is a heat check because your jump shot is just on fire. No, do more of what's making you successful, and this is not it. And this wouldn't be the first time, second time, third time, or fifth time that RJ Barrett would force the issue. And this is, Keita bad, and this is great. RJ Barrett rips through, forces the foul. Now, this is like, you say the ones you wish you can get back. Oh my God, that is tough. And here's Jaylen Brown just kind of wrapping up RJ Barrett and making sure that he does not get the N1, but, okay. This is me saying that Jaylen Brown is better than RJ Barrett. Don't at me. This is going to trigger some Celtics fans, I'm sure. I don't actually believe that, but I do think the gap is a lot closer than people think it is. All right. Here's RJ Barrett throwing gets the pass picked off by Al Horford there and doesn't panic. Notices the clock, 1.1. Al Horford is 36 or 38. I think he was 38. And he just puts it up on him. Certainly a Star J moment for him. And then, as if trying to respond in mano a mano fashion here's Jaylen Brown with his incredible handle and super processing speed, whipping the pass to the guy with the popcorn and resulting in a backcourt violation. Jaylen Brown is so limited. Sometimes, like, it's so insane to me when he puts up like 30 points, 35 points, whatever, and people are just like, oh my God, Jaylen Brown's so great. It's like, Jaylen Brown is really limited, man. Like, just watch that again. Like, how do you not make this? Like, can you think of a passer in this league that you think is a star or superstar or anything that he gets called that makes that play at that moment? That's crazy. All right, this is RJ Bully Ball on Jaylen Brown. Just puts him in the woodshed, forces the foul, and one. I don't remember if he made the free throw, but he missed 5, so there's a good chance he missed that one. And that was the shot that actually got him his triple-double, which is great. And I don't know. This is another controversial call for me. Is this a foul? Let's slow it down and figure it out. One sec. Okay, I'm going to slow it down to a crawl pace. Okay, so here's Jason Tatum. He realizes nobody's open. This is very poor spacing on the Raptors' part. May I just add that. Grady is probably in the wrong place here. RJ and Davion are way too close. This is creating a second defender, and you'll notice that the fact that they're not respecting Davion is making this a very difficult. Because Keita is able to gap the defender, right? He's not worried about this shot from Davion, right? So here he's going to respond to it a little bit, and yeah, that's a trip. Look at Tatum's leg. Look at Jakob's leg. There's a reason he falls, and the referees just let this go. That is a foul. You cannot trip the offensive player. You can move out of the way and let them fall, but that's not what happened here. And there's a referee right there. 64. Who the hell are you? That is a clear foul. I'm sorry. That is 100% a foul. You cannot trip the offensive player here. Boom. Maybe they thought, okay, well, he was losing his balance anyway. He's probably going to lose the ball, but he doesn't really lose the ball until he gets tripped. So maybe he could have stumbled. You could have called the timeout, whatever. But I'm sorry, that to me is a foul. You don't get to trip players like that. And this is Jason Tatum hitting the backboard with a game winner on the line. And he kind of clears Ochai there, you know, gets wide open. Davion with the late contest, and he just bricks it. Like you really, wow, that's crazy. Okay, this is a very unnecessary play from Ochai Baji. The Raptors get a defensive stop here, and in trying to push in transition, Ochai passes to RJ Barrett, and he just overshoots the pass. You can't see Ochai throwing the ball, but Ochai is the guy at the very top left of your screen, and he just throws this to RJ, and he just overshoots it a little bit. Again, the Raptors do not have a lot of natural passing talent. They have a lot of like they have one really naturally gifted passer, and that's Scottie. Their second most naturally gifted passer is Kelly. So every player after that is just like not optimally, designed to run an offense. And you're going to have some really ugly possessions with Jakob Poeltl, Ochai Baji, Grady Dick at times. Grady Dick has been a little bit turnover prone lately. So, yeah, this was a great overturn by the refs. Good for them. Kind of seeing the physics of the basketball. Darko Rajakovic. And initially, this was, I think this was 30 seconds left in overtime, 123, 123. And no, it was 21 seconds left in overtime. Was it 21 seconds? No, it was 31 seconds left in overtime. And Darko called a timeout and challenged this, and it was overturned. So that was a great challenge from him. And again, this is more RJ Barrett doing things that I don't necessarily love from RJ Barrett. And I'm just going to stand by it. He had a fantastic game tonight. There's no reason for anyone to be ripping him or whatever, but this is just not it. This is not what's made you successful tonight. And this is way too stagnant. Everything is so stagnant. You're attacking a set defense. And yeah, if you make this, you're a hero. But you've been stuffed numerous times over the last few games going to the rim like this because you don't get enough elevation and you don't have enough length to finish this. You're a below the rim finisher. For the most part, RJ Barrett is a below the rim finisher. And so it's going to be easier for a guy to predict his time and block it. And again, if he makes that shot, yeah, sure. A lot of people are like, great, that was a great shot. I'm never going to be cool with a shot like that coming off of no movement. It's another thing if, you swing and you create some sort of action on the right side of the floor and you're coming off a dribble handoff and now you're attacking a scrambling defense that's trying to relocate itself. But attacking a set defense, especially with the clutch possession down the stretch where your endpoint is pretty much predictable, that seems tough. Now, this I thought was actually very, very competent defense, but better offense from Ochai Baji. I think Ochai Baji did a really great job here, and I'm really not sure. Davion totally gets away with a foul here. I want to be clear about that. I mean, the refs don't call it. It doesn't completely make up for the 100 times they've missed plays tonight. But with 5 seconds to go, you almost cost yourself the game here. If you're Davion Mitchell, you can make an argument if they call that foul that at least the Raptors would have a chance to tie it and go to second OT because Tatum does not leave a second on the clock here. Now, did he travel? Hang on. All right, Jason Tatum, did you travel here? Hang on. Watch his feet. I hope y'all have a big TV that you're watching this on. Just watch his feet. Yes, he traveled. Yes, he traveled. Count the steps. Am I stupid or did he travel? 1, 2, 3. That's 3 steps. That's a travel. And the ref was literally looking at his feet. Okay, thank God. I'm not losing my mind. Yes, Jason Tatum traveled. So I hope the last 2-minute report shows that. So that's the refs robbing you again. And Davion Mitchell is definitely like way. Okay. And he pulls back as if it's a promo for TD and pulls from the TD logo. Cool. And is that another travel? Hang on. Mm, I'm going to make a reel about this. I don't know if that's a travel, but yeah, that's tough. Anyways, he hits the shot. It's excruciating. The second one doesn't look like a travel, but the first one definitely was. So, anyway, that is tough. Okay. Do we have any callers? You can call in. Link is in the description. If you want to call in, we can talk about it. We can also do some major takeaways from this game if you'd like. And Clutch Tatum saying, "Oh my goodness, the greatest shot I've witnessed. Tatum, why you so great?" Uh, yeah, okay. I mean, your goat there, your goat basically clanked a game winner against Backrim. I think you should change your name to Not So Clutch Tatum. Zip Tatum's pants after you're done. There's no need for that. Let's kind of keep away from those comments, please. I would very much appreciate it. It's like I don't know where. Okay, we got Luis Mavaro. Luis, what's up? Hello? You're muted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
My man. So about tonight. Wow. Look, this was a tough loss. I think even the pro tankers tonight wanted this win like myself, but you know what, man? Ultimately, like we are the worst team in the league with IQ and Scottie out, and you just gotta watch not for wins and losses. As hard as that is, that's what you gotta do, man.
Mhm.
That's my advice to all Raptor fans. You gotta watch for player development. Like, I've been in the spaces today, and it just seems like people are losing their minds over this team, and it's really not that serious. Like, this is a very stacked draft. We have one of the best front offices in the NBA still, I believe, especially when it comes to the draft. Dan Tolzman is easily one of the best scouts in the world, and we're gonna be just fine. So that's just my little bit of optimism for tonight. But tough loss, obviously. I do hope we get that Dark Old Ranch just because it's tonight is worthy of that. But that's really all I had, man. And just want to thank you for all the work that you do. You do a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Are you done? Oh, okay. Gotta love it. Short and sweet, to the point. Dan Tolzman is great. Draft is great. Let me know if you have something else to say. You can call in. Love callers like that. We're on point. Very cool. Justin Stewart said he said his piece. Respect. Absolutely. Barnes of Scottie saying, I'm not even mad that Tatum hit that. Infi Tech saying, would RJ be better than Davion as a starting point guard? Hell yes. 100% yes, he would be. Neither one of them is a point guard, so it doesn't really matter like which way you go with it. It's perfectly fine. Yeah. I mean, if you wanna optimize sorry, if you want to be optimistic about this, clearly, capture the flag, all that stuff, right? We did a live about Cooper Flagg earlier today, and I gotta tell you, like, it's definitely a dude that's worth losing for. I'm gonna tell you that. Is definitely a guy who is going to easily elevate the fortunes of whichever team, drafts him. And it's not just about him in this draft. There's guys like Igor Demin, there's guys like VJ Edgecombe, Demon. People say Demon. I don't know why I've been saying Demin the entire time. It's Igor Demon. So it's just a really it's confusing, right? You're undermanned and you've been in so many of these games. You had Denver on the ropes, up 6, 1 minute to go, Scottie gets hurt, right? You have had Sacramento on the ropes multiple times, right? You beat Sacramento. You damn near beat Boston. And you know what? It's like games like this, they feel like wins even though they're losses officially, right? You took a team that frankly has looked very unbeatable against most opponents. They're its top 2 team in your conference, and you tested yourself against them, and you found out a lot about yourselves, right? You found out a lot about RJ Barrett as a playmaker. I think you found out a lot about Jakob Poeltl. There's a lot to be optimistic about with this loss. If you wanna be super optimistic about the trade value of your ancillary pieces, guys like Chris Boucher are probably worth a hell of a lot more after tonight's win or loss, right? Sorry, I just said Jakob Isaac, my bad. Jacob Isaac saying RJ and Pirtle both can't shoot free throws or mid-range jumpers. That's crazy. Nameless saying Celtics broadcast was loving the way we swing the ball around. Reference our assist totals this season. Sure. Retro Jasper saying, is Igor Demin a guard or a point forward? He plays a mix of both, and I'm wondering where he would fit here. He's definitely a point forward. 100%. Shut Scottie Barnes for the season. That's not happening. Losing 60 games is not good for any team, even a tanking team. I don't think that the Raptors are necessarily going to be subjected to nearly as much of the, let's call it like the side effects of losing as most teams are, right? Because most teams, when they lose basketball games, they do suffer a bit of an inherent bump in confidence or self-esteem or culture and all that stuff. I don't necessarily think this team is going to take that hit. So I don't know. My takeaway is this was supposed to be a loss. You know, that you're on a back to back. It's a really tough team, and they played around with a little bit with their food. And maybe next time they don't take you so lightly, right? I think you put them on notice a little bit tonight. You know, you kind of put them on notice. You said, "Hey, you're going to take us lightly. We're going to shred you. We're going to shred you." And these are the games that you want your young team to get up for. You don't want your young team necessarily getting up for the Utahs. You want your young team to get up for the Bostons, right? For the soul trip to the Lakers. You want them to get up for the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Orlando Magic. You want them to get up for the Denver Nuggets even. You know, games like that. I've always applauded Scottie's ability to show up in those big games in years past against teams like Milwaukee, the Sixers, etc., the Lakers, when those teams were good. Those were the games you knew Scottie was like really raring to go. And those are the games that you really do test yourself because those teams are designed to stop you. Last night, I felt like the Detroit Pistons were not at all designed to stop RJ Barrett. And he had a pretty inefficient game, and he's followed it up with another really inefficient game from the field. But in both nights, I found that he was a much, much better player. Last night, despite his inefficiencies from the field, do you know that RJ Barrett posted a north of 8 box plus minus? That is a very good game, you know? And again, tonight, I'll guarantee you that he was probably north of 8 box plus minus, despite some of those rough moments, despite some of those tough shots, which he's going to have to just figure out because, you know, RJ Barrett has been like in the clutch one, two, three times. And it's just like lost 3 times in a row. And that's not to say that he shouldn't take these shots. It's just that he should be cognizant of which shots are working and which shots are not. And it doesn't seem like he is. It seems like there's this habit in him, which is like, okay, slow down the possession, turn into Carmelo Anthony. You're not Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony's a bigger player than you. He was a better player than you. He just got advantages scoring the basketball that you're never going to enjoy. He turns into Kobe Bryant, you know, the Maple Mamba thing. You're not Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was a much better shooter than you, a much better athlete than you. So at some point, you're just going to have to learn that there are limitations to what you can do, but what you can do is so great and so needed for your team. And that's what makes it frustrating because it could be so much more efficient. It's tough. Sure. Maple Mamba. I mean, you're laughing, but that was literally what he was called. I don't think y'all remember how insanely high people were on RJ Barrett coming out of high school, man. But nevertheless, like he's blossoming. It's been bumpy at times. There's been real low points, but there have been some really high points too. Okay. Like, let's not lie here. RJ Barrett has had like five really good games this year, and he's had like eight not so good games. Seven not so good games, six not so good games. I don't know. It's been like a mixed bag. So like his bad games were like really bad or somewhat bad. He hasn't had a lot of mediocre games. It's either great or terrible. So that's the interesting thing. Can you list three players you'd like to draft the most next year, first, second, third? That's a good question. Cooper Flagg. This is not a mock draft. Please understand, this is not me saying I want this guy, then this guy, then this guy. But I would just say three players that I'm really excited about are Cooper Flagg, VJ Edgecombe, and Colin Murray Boyles. So those are three players that I really like in this draft. Obviously, like I'm not suggesting that anyone would take VJ Edgecombe over even Igor Demin or Ace Bailey. I'm curious to watch more of Kaman Malwak, man. I am very, very early in my scouting cycle right now. There are a lot of players, obviously, like Dink Pate and guys like Colin Murray Boyles, guys like that I've watched before. Kaman, watched a lot of him because of his work over in Africa. So I'm more familiar with him as a youth prospect. So I'm really curious to catch up on the last year of scouting with him. Cooper has been like a lot more intensive because I've been like really invested in him. So that's interesting. But yes, those are three players that I really like. Demin is what the league thought Cade was coming out of college. Maybe. Maybe. Do you have anything productive or positive to say? I've read like 17 comments from you and they're all trash. Every one of them. Just trash, trash, trash. Say something productive, man. Anyway, Jack saying VJ is an athlete. He would be great with Scottie. Yeah. Thoughts on Dylan Harper? Kind of low on him. Hmm. My thoughts are I don't really I'm not I'm not a fan. I don't see him as like a surefire all-star or anything like that. But again, no no solid takes right now. My only solid take is Cooper Flagg is legit and is definitely going to be, in my opinion, the first player picked in this draft. And yeah, like Ace Bailey's handle, has been a little bit of a question mark for me. His shot selection, his handle, that Miguel saying Dylan Harper reminds me of Jamal Murray. Hmm. No real thoughts so far. Barnes of Scottie, how unbiased of you. I'm a Raptor fan, not a Scottie fan. Cool. Hard to be. It's really hard to be a Raptor fan and not a Scottie fan, but cool. Now, I will say this. Longer term, the Raptors do have one major, let's call it thing to sort out, which is I think that they have to figure out that Scottie is not a four, right? Going forward. Scottie became an all-star while playing the two. He didn't become an all-star for what he did the months prior to being selected to the all-star team. It was largely for what he did in the first, 2 months of the season. And that's when he was playing the two. And if you remember, it was Scottie at the two, Dennis Schroeder at the one, Pascal at the four, OG at the three, and Jakob at the five. There's two things you really need to make this Scottie thing work. Well, there's really three things you need. You need a really pesky combo guard who can actually guard point guards, which, in theory, you have with a little bit more development in Emmanuel Quickly, who can stretch the floor. You had some variation of that with Fred VanVleet if he had chosen to buy in. You need a really athletic two-way four in my opinion. And you also need a stretch five. Turning Scottie into that athletic, versatile four is not the solution. He's oversized as a wing. He's a little undersized as a big. Forcing him to play undersized is not to his betterment, and he's been much worse off for it. So I'm very curious to understand what the Raptors are doing long term because most teams try to put their best player at their natural position, and his natural position is guard. Putting him at small forward is questionable, but at least okay. Putting him at the four, in my opinion, is a mistake. It makes you unnecessarily and needlessly small. And unless it is like some sort of developmental thing where you're like, okay, we're going to put him there and then we're going to move him to the three as he gets a little bit older or move him to the two or whatever. If that's a long term plan, cool. But it does complicate things a little bit because you do have three members of your at least near term core that are all wings that are smaller than Scottie. You have RJ who can't possibly play the four. You have Grady who can't possibly play the four. And you have Emmanuel Quickly who can't play the four. Squeezing your best player into a non-natural position is a very weird thing, especially when you are seeing for months now that he has struggled with that position. I don't love it. This only becomes even more complicated if you draft a guard or a wing. If you end up drafting a Dylan Harper, now Scottie's permanently four. And that's tough too, right? Now, obviously, you're not going to draft based on fit. You're not going to base the draft based on positional fit. If the best player available is literally the twin of Scottie, which some people think Cooper Flagg is, you pick him and you figure it out because talent is talent and smart coaches find a way to make it work, right? We might move Poeltl at the deadline. He's certainly putting up the numbers, man. We should also talk about Brendan Carlsen being signed to the OKC Thunder because that happened today. And I thought about making a live for it, but I'm like, you know what? People are really just crashing out online about this already. I don't need to make a video about this. You already have like an outlet to talk about it. So I'll say this. I don't necessarily think it matters. I don't think he's going to stick on the roster. If he does stick on the roster, cool. Would you have rather had him over Bruno Fernando? Sure. There's some logic to that. It probably would have helped your spacing a lot more. Probably would have hurt your defense, though. He really gets moved around a lot. He spends a lot of time on the ground. I've watched a lot of him in the G League. I've watched all three of his G League games so far. It's been a lot of mixed results. He's had about three really good quarters so far throughout his first three games in the G League thus far. So I'm not really like moved by it. Naturally, if it works out brilliantly and next month you're seeing him splashing 20 points for the OKC Thunder and he gets a permanent roster spot there, some people are going to feel a certain way about it because the Raptors have lost a lot of, let's say, serviceable talents they could really use. Talking about a Jeff Doughton, who is a clear upgrade, in my opinion, on Davion Mitchell. You let him go for nothing last year. Then you have a guy like Christian Coloco, unfortunate health issue, exactly the type of backup big that you don't have in this roster. Imagine him in place of Bruno Fernando right now. How much better would our future look right now? Probably a lot better, right? Then now you have a Brandon Carlsen. And of course, this is a team that already let go of Norman Powell for Gary Trent. And we're watching what Norman Powell is doing. And so it's like, shoot, right? Why couldn't we have waived someone like a Bruno Fernando or a Davion Mitchell eating the contract and just taken on a more talented player? I'll tell you why. Because a lot of this comes down to development. And I want to have a really great final 10 minutes of this live, 10, 15 minutes of this live. And I want to talk to you about forced development. Okay. This is not something you're going to hear anybody anywhere else. You're never going to get Darko on record admitting this. You're never going to get any coach on record admitting this, other than talking about other people doing this. But let me tell you what I mean. Have you ever trained with ankle weights? And you take them off, you sore, right? It's like when we used to do basketball training, I had an issue with looking down at the basketball a lot, right? So What my coach suggested once was a visor. Put this thing on my face like that, and it cut out my sight below, and it forced me to dribble without being able to see the basketball because I had this visor that was just cutting off my I don't know if it's peripheral vision or what it is to be able to look down. I just couldn't look down anymore. It helped me tremendously as a basketball player. It broke my most natural tendency. My most natural tendency, of course, as a weak ball handler initially, who was trying to transition away from the two and more towards the one because I was a little bit undersized. It broke my most natural tendency of looking down at the basketball. That was important. Scottie Barnes is a really good example of a player who has a lot of good and bad natural tendencies. You know what happens when you play on really loaded high school prep teams or AAU teams, like Scottie did with the Sharks? Do you know how many talented players were on the Sharks? Seriously. Go Google Scottie's AAU rosters and go Google his high school teams. Go look at how many great players were in Montverde. Go look how many great players were playing for the NSU Sharks. Go look. Taylor Hendricks, Jet Howard, Vernon Carey, NBA player, NBA player, NBA player. Your 4 future NBA players. Montverde, him, Cade Cunningham, Moses Moody, Caleb Houston, Day'Ron Sharp. How many NBA players were on that team? I think it was 6. When you have that much talent and you're so much better than everyone else, you can pick and choose. You can have quarters where you're good and quarters where you're not. This quarter, I feel like dialing it up. This quarter, I feel like moving the basketball. So we know that Scottie can succeed as a 2 next to other really good players. We know that. You know why? Because we saw it for a nice 30 plus game sample size last year against some pretty decent talent. And it didn't stop. We know that he can be a 2-way wing. We know that. We know he can become an all-star playing that way. But how do you take it to the next level? How do you make him the type of like 25 to 30 point in his sleep type of player when he goes through quarters where he is not looking at the basket to score? Because that's the natural tendency that he has. The natural tendency he has is to pick his spots. How do you break that natural tendency is the question. You create a roster around him that is so fucking awful. The back end, and then you play all of those players with him in a lineup. They are basically pawns in a scheme to develop your main pieces. Grady, I will guarantee you that Bruno Fernando's only purpose on this team over Brandon Carlsen is the fact that he sets better screens. That's it. That's literally it. There's nothing else. He's not a better shooter. He's probably not a better shot blocker at this point. Seriously. He's not younger. He's not less experienced. He's not cheaper. The only gap here is that Bruno sets better picks. And in order to develop properly, you need Grady to be able to come off screens. And so Bruno's a better fit. Keep the main thing, right? What's your main thing though? Your main pieces are Grady and Scottie. Those are your main pieces. Keep it a stack. Everybody else is shuffleable. Let's say that's the core. Okay. Will Mobo and Shed and Walter graduate to one day becoming part of the core? Who knows? Maybe, you know what? Jakobi might be a part of this too. I'm going to tell you right now, just again, off the record, on the record, whatever, that they're very, very high on him internally. Maybe Shamshay really down the line. But they have some like deep vision for what these players are supposed to become. And in order for them to become that, they have to be put into positions where they are stressed away from their most natural tendencies. See, Grady is now being headhunted by the opposing team's best defenders. Derek White is a nightmare to try and score on. And Grady's finding that out. And now next summer, he's going to go in the lab and he's going to have all this footage of him going up against Derek White. And Derek White is able to focus on him because Davion Mitchell is on the court, right? Davion Mitchell is so helpful to all of this because it's a constant handicap. It's a constant handicap. And every player has to become so much better to compensate for this handicap. And the handicap is a player who simply cannot score, cannot create, is an okay defender. But seriously, do you know how easy it is to reach into Europe and find a better point guard than Davion Mitchell? There's 15 of them. The goal here is not winning, guys. I promise you that. They're not trying to win. They are not trying to win. They are not trying to tank. They're not trying to anything. It's not a tank. It's just development. And development is so fucking ugly. Yo, let me give you like an idea of what I'm talking about. Let's say I'm coaching an AAU team, right? And I have a star who's really passive, right? He likes to move the basketball. Maybe in the third quarter, when he feels like he's just gonna like nonchalantly put up 20 points and he's gonna have a good game. But in the first quarter, he's chilling. Second quarter, he's chilling because he's been on stacked AAU teams his whole goddamn life, and he's just able to chill. He's able to pick and choose his spots. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up the back end of my roster with really, really bad players. And for 5 to 10 minutes every single night, I'm going to put them on the court with when I feel like this is just, I'm going to put them on the court with 4 bad players, 4 players who can't dribble, 4 players who can barely shoot. And I'm going to force him to get really comfortable, pretty much handling the ball every time down the court or losing. Sink or swim, fella. That's what you say. Sink or swim. Oh, you want to be passive? Scottie found this out last year. Scottie has a very passive natural tendency. No, Brian, somewhat disagreed with this. I wouldn't call him passive, or I wouldn't call him pass first. He said, I don't want to misquote him. He said, I wouldn't call him pass first. But Scottie can be passive at times, and sometimes to his detriment. You want him to attack, but he won't attack. Oh, he's looking to defer to Malachi. He's like, oh, yo, Malachi, you do your thing. I'm going to stand in the corner. How do you break that tendency? Well, maybe Malachi's too good. You need to go down a peg. Maybe Chris Boucher is too good. You need to go down a peg. We need to get Bruno Fernando up in here. Bro, these guys are on this team literally because they're good practice players. They're really tough defenders. Davion Mitchell is a really tough defender. Like in practice, in a practice setting, he's going to beat the shit out of you. He's going to like be aggressive with you. He's going to dig into the ball. Yeah. So you know what? When Davion goes to the second unit, those practices with him trying to guard Scottie full court as Scottie handles the basketball is going to make Scottie so much better. Because Davion Mitchell is exactly the type of guard that Scottie cannot handle the ball against right now. That's exactly the type of guard that would provide too much pressure and he would naturally pass the basketball. Well, now guess what? Scottie Barnes, you can't pass the basketball because you're playing with Bruno Fernando. You're going to play with Bruno Fernando, Jamison Battle, Jonathan Mobo, and Jamal Shed in the same goddamn lineup. Now do you. You can't give it to Jamison Battle to create because he can't do that. It's not in his game, right? That's the point. There are some players who are just here to prop up the boat. That's it. That's literally their only job. And in a couple of years, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, but probably closer to 1 year, they're going to remove all these handicaps and all these players, like basically like a stone that has been artificially suppressed. No, stones don't float in water. Something that's been artificially suppressed in water is just going to rise up. You know what I mean? It's like Davion Mitchell is ankle weights. He's like, y'all ever wore like a 30-pound vest, a 30-pound vest, a 40-pound vest, and just wore it around all day and then took it off? You ever feel like, what the? Davion Mitchell is the 30-pound vest on your chest. You know what I mean? This is 100% what the Raptors are doing. I knew Darko was doing this literally last year when he started playing Scottie in the bench units, and Scottie got better for it. Scottie got much better for it, because he learned very quickly, if I don't score for this unit, nobody's scoring for this unit. You know what I mean? It's the best thing in the world for him. They have a longer term vision for Scottie. I realize some people are like pretty much sworn off this idea that Scottie's going to be a superstar. I saw Ben Simmons. I wonder if they're related. They're not related. I saw Bill Simmons 2021 mock draft, redraft. He had Scottie Barnes at 6th. I think this is insane. I think it's even more insane that he had Franz Wagner at 8th or 10th. I think it's so stupid. Franz is awesome. Scottie is awesome. Jalen Suggs has been really good lately. That 2021 draft class is finally living up to hype, but Scottie's not been playing, so out of sight, out of mind. A lot of people have sort of forgotten. But I promise you, as God is my witness, provided he stays healthy, Scottie Barnes is going to be like a super duper star very, very soon. And it's largely because Darko has always envisioned that for him. So even playing the four right now, it's just not to his advantage, right? But you wonder if playing the four might be like the better thing because you know that he can that he can bully ball like threes and twos, right? But against the fours, he's forced to move away from the most natural tendency, which is to be bigger than everybody, right? Because Scottie has been bigger than people his whole life. Scottie's been able to bump, and that's the natural tendency. You see what I mean? Like, what does RJ do? RJ has a lot of natural tendencies too. That's what I'm trying to tell you is like breaking natural tendencies is really hard when you've played basketball a certain way your whole life. So consider like what Scottie does, right? He'll dribble across, and then his most natural tendency is to turn his back to his defender and try to bump them, right? Really hard to do when you're playing the four and you're trying to bump a guy like Alperen Şengün and he's not going anywhere. So now if you're going to play the four, you're going to move away from your natural tendency and you're going to do more of like a rip through dribble and you're going to go right to the basket. And we've seen a lot more of that from Scottie this year as well, right? It's only when he has guards on him that he tends to move more into the natural tendency of bump, bump, bump. That's not the player you need though, right? Sure. I don't understand this at all. So when Goku removes all his weighted clothing and then goes ham. I never watched Dragon Ball Z, but if you say so, sure. It's a really good give me a W if what I said makes sense to you, because honestly, it is clearly what the Raptors are doing. And when Darko says no skip steps, this is exactly what he means. Yeah, cool. Booker was a role player on the Olympics team. Donovan would have been as well. Star players can play better D when they don't have to create offense. Great. I'm so glad that that made sense, guys. Do you think we only signed Fernando to No. I think we signed him because he fits a style that we are trying to play, which is that he rebounds competently. And Ghost has IQ saying stop spamming Phoenix draft in 2018 full. What? Booker trade will hit. I don't understand what you're saying. Repairing. Yeah, exactly. Mike saying seeking mismatch shouldn't be a good team. Also don't understand that. W for sure. The only thing that worries me is Masai and how he gets overly attached to his players, in my opinion. Well, they won a championship together. And typically, when you go to war with a particular group, you feel a certain sense of loyalty. I also think that DeMar backlash really, really shook Masai to his core to the point where he almost became like a little bit like, uh-oh, am I a bad person because I traded this guy? Masai's got a big heart, right? Like Masai's a really good person. And yeah. Infitech. The last time a last place team, Phoenix, got the first pick in the following draft, Aiton, was 6 years ago in 2018. Before that, it was 2016 when the last place 76ers got Ben Simmons. It's due. That's not really how numbers work, but sure. I get you. So odds reset every single time. You know that, right? Like, I don't need to explain that to you. Like, you know that. Okay, cool. Karen Hall, do you think the players are aware of this plan, these techniques, making them wear the figurative ankle weights? I'm not sure they are. I'm not sure that it matters that they know that they are or not. But yeah, I mean, any common sense person could figure that out pretty quickly. That if Davion Mitchell is on your team, like, what is the purpose of that? Liban saying, if only. Okay, cool. Also, I will point to this. There are certain players that just make other players better because of their practice habits. I think there are like quite a few. And I'm not attributing De'Aaron Fox's success. Mr. scored 60 points last night, he's a borderline all-star now. But when they drafted Davion, De'Aaron Fox was not having a nice go at it. Okay. He was having a terrible go at it. And is largely playing against Davion in practice every single day that has really raised De'Aaron Fox. So yeah, like as much as I slander Davion Mitchell for being so bad at basketball, he is really good at one thing. And it's that one thing that makes you really skilled, right? Because again, if you're not a skilled guard with the basketball, he will rip it from you and he will make your life hell. If you don't know how to navigate like against pressure, he's going to make your life living hell in practice. And the fact that he is a hard working practice player, he's exactly the type of player that's going to help you out a lot. Like if I was to just rank out like the players that I think are in the deck for the future, I would guarantee you that Jamison Battle is in the long term future for this team. I don't know how I know this. Don't ask me how I know this, but I think him and Jakob Poeltl are just like really just perma fixtures. Jonathan Mobo, clearly the Scottie connection is there. The defensive upside is huge. The way he jumps is enormous. So I think they're really invested in a lot of these guys, right? I really do. I think they're very invested in a lot of these players. But then there's a lot of these players that are just kind of like hanging around, right? The Bruce Browns, the Chris Bouchers, the Davion Mitchells, the Bruno Fernandos, etc. When it's time, you can upgrade all those positions to competent level NBA players when that time comes. And that in itself will boost you up 20 wins because I don't think you understand how flagrantly bad some of these players are. So, yeah. Does Battle have a higher ceiling than Sam Hauser? Not really. No, not really. He doesn't need to have a higher ceiling than Sam Hauser. And Sam Hauser is a great player, like really, really good bench player. I want to say great player. Wow, we're getting very carried away on great players here. No, he's a very, very competent bench player. John Hamilton saying love Battle. Let me just check if the post game is up. If it's not, we'll cut this live short. But if it is up, we can definitely go to the post game. Give me one sec here. I hope the post game is up at some point because I feel like Darko should snap on these referees. Nope. There be nothing, man. I guess it's because the Raptors are not at home. Okay. Well, we will have you covered with some sort of live tomorrow. I'm positive. We'll definitely, maybe after this video goes live, you can let me know what you would like that live to be about. Maybe you have a particular subject. Maybe you'd like me to expand on the previous subject we've been talking about. Maybe you want to, talk about the draft. Maybe you want to talk about Igor Devin. I don't know. Actually, there were some pretty astonishing stats. I don't know if you guys are following us on X, but you should. Very different content. Something about Jakob Poeltl trade suitors. H said saying, Rob, we want all the draft prospect coverage. LOL. Everyone wants the draft. Well, see, if I talk about the draft right now, I'm going to be talking out of my ass, right? Because I haven't done enough work and we don't have enough of a body of work. So I promise you when the time comes, and it seems like the time is very soon coming because the Raptors have now moved to 2-12, 2-11, 2-12, 2-12. So 2-12 is like, we're getting very, very close to the math, right? The math is going to be the math. I posted a little bit of a meme on X earlier. You remember the scene in Lion King where Simba returns to Pride Rock and he's like all excited, and then we see like it's completely decayed. Yeah. HC saying, I appreciate your integrity. Because some people would just read an ESPN mock draft and make videos based off of that. Yeah, they really do, don't they?
It's so funny. So I will actually share something with you guys that I heard today on Locked On NBA Big Board with Rafael Barlow and his brother, whose name I cannot remember, but whose last name is certainly Barlow as well. So they were talking about Cooper Flagg for 30 minutes, and this was right after I had made my own Cooper Flagg video. So I was curious what other people were saying because I like to listen to what other people say as well. And his brother made the comparison between Cooper Flagg to Kawhi Leonard. And I thought that was really interesting. I really like when black players are compared to white players and white players are compared to black players because I know that it wasn't a lazy comp. Typically there is this, again, watching somebody compare Cooper Flagg to Luka Doncic is like some of the most nutty shit you've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, Kawhi is a very interesting comp for yeah. But yes, to the point that you made here, I've watched a lot of content creators farm for views saying like this is my way too early mock draft, and it's just like it is basically what you're saying here. It's just a reading out of the entire mock draft, and it's like peppering in like little notes. I do lives, so there's a way, way, way greater chance of getting exposed in a live, right? 'Cause someone's gonna ask you a follow-up question, you're not gonna have the answer to it, you're gonna get totally exposed for it. It's much easier when you're just scripting out, a video. Like, let me try right now. Arius Ace Bailey, who played for, XYZ team, whose mom was this, whose aunt was this. He has a 7 foot 2, 7'2" wingspan and does things like this. And then boom, flash to a cut of a dunk. And it's like, he's averaging 18 points. So, da, 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 da. He reminds me of a young Tracy McGrady with the way he does this. And you're like, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about. It's like, this guy just read Wikipedia. You know what I mean? So yeah, like you want to present your own opinions and they're going to be wrong. They're going to be wrong, right? Projecting Dyson Daniels as a top 4 pick in the 2022 draft, like, has some serious potential to be wrong because he walked into that draft mocked in the second round. So being so high on a player and then watching that player work out, that's the victory though. As like, let's say a scout, that's what you want though. You want to go out on a limb and you want to be right. You don't want to just say what everybody else is saying. But if everybody's right, you also don't want to go against that. You know what I mean? Like I never ripped Victor Wembanyama being the first overall pick. You never heard me say that once. I was pretty much like, this is as clear cut a number 1 pick as there ever has been. Let's shut the door on any bullshit conversations there, right? You don't want to be contrarian for contrarian's sake either, right? Yeah. Two Tone saying, what's the official tank math? 2 and 15, 2 and 18. I mean, you would say that at 3 and 17, it would be really difficult to conceive of a path forward where you keep all your veterans in the lineup, right? So, I mean, this is ridiculous, right? 2 and 25. Okay, do the math to 500 and tell me what your record would have to be from 2 and 25 to get back to 500. That's 41 and 41, right? You'd have to go 39 and 16 to get back to 500. Like, what are we doing here? HT saying Flagg got more offensive upside than KG. I don't know about that. KG had a lot of offensive upside, but yeah, he reminds me a lot of Kevin Garnett, like a smaller Kevin Garnett. I like the Kawhi comp though. I do. I mean, no matter which way you swing it, if you're comparing him to a white player that's not Andre Kirilenko, you're probably wrong. I compared him to to Sean Marion with better shooting, but I should add way better creation. So it's like you're adding in creation, you're adding in shooting. You're not talking about Sean Marion anymore, right? This 2 and 12 Raptors team is way better than last year's Pistons team, eh? Oh wow. Kala Mikal, bro, you look high as a kite. I look high as a kite? Okay, cool. What did I say? Did I say it backwards? Did I say 39 and 16? My bad. 39 and 26. There we go. Right. My bad. Marin Prince saying somebody said you look high. Apparently. Cool. I'm high on the purple Kush purple Raptor. Okay. Guess who was on the court with Donovan for the majority of the time he was on the court? Gobert on the Jazz and Jarrett Allen and Mobley on the Cavs. I don't know what debate is happening here, but cool. Barnes is Scottie saying, don't put a white guy on me, Larry Bird. It's true. He did say that. We got Layne calling in. Layne, what's up?
Yo, OH.
IO, what's up?
How about them Buckeyes?
Okay, can I please complain about one thing to you?
Yes, sir.
Did your state produce Jake Paul?
They did. But it was Cleveland. We don't count Cleveland. We've been over this.
Cool. Okay. I got exactly 5 minutes before I got to get out of here. What's up?
Oh, man. Nothing much. Beautiful game. Absolutely beautiful game. I am not necessarily pro tank. However, I am pro lose as many games as you can, if that makes sense, right? But competitive losses are so beautiful, especially like this.
How long have you been listening?
I just got upstairs. I've been watching college football, so I got up.
So,
I was like,
did you watch the game?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, so I was talking earlier about using Davion Mitchell as basically like a handicap, right? And talking about breaking natural tendencies that certain players on this team have, specifically a guy like Scottie Barnes, whose natural tendency, maybe through playing on loaded AAU teams and high school teams, has been to pick and choose his spots, right? So when you put non-offensive creators around a player like that, you're sort of forcing them to break a tendency, right? So I'm curious about your thoughts on this roster specifically as it pertains to there's certain guys who clearly don't have like the clearest upside or future on this team, like a guy like Bruno Fernando, Chris Boucher, etc. But they sort of fit into a developmental piece. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, Boucher deserves his flowers so far this season. I think everybody, including himself, knows that this is probably his last year in Toronto. And does he even finish the year here? Probably not. If I was a betting man, right, I'd put money on that he shipped out the trade deadline. But the fact that this dude shows in, day out, does nothing but hustle for his teammates. Sometimes he makes boneheaded plays. Sometimes he makes terrible plays. But he is not going to let that get in his head. He's going to hustle. I mean, he's a coach's dream, right? Because if you want a bench player, you wanted to be – I would rather have a guy be like Chris Boucher than a guy who gets down on himself, be like a Karis LeVert, right?
Karis LeVert's been amazing.
He's been amazing, but when he misses like 3-4 shots in a row, he's not hustling, right? He's not putting in that extra effort, putting in that extra step. But when Karis LeVert makes 3 or 4 shots in a row, you better watch out, right? Boucher, though, I mean, no matter what, he could be like 1 for 8, and he's still hustling. He's still crashing the offensive boards. Like, he's doing a lot of stupid things. But he I don't want to say he makes up for it with his hustle, but it's at least nice to see that he cares. And I mean, there's not a lot of guys out there that do that. So I mean, he deserves his flowers for sure.
Yeah, he's been a super pro. I think he's a little bit frustrating at times to watch, like, because you do see like some of the best things that he does are so useful, like crashing the offensive glass. You know, cutting back door, and you're just like, man, do more of that. Why can't you do more of that? I don't know. Maybe he's going to get better. Like maybe he's going to be one of those rare 31-year-olds who finally figures out how to play basketball at some point. But I'm not holding my breath. Like he does a lot of things well, and you're right. Like it's very infectious, and sometimes it's very timely. It just, as a role player in the NBA, typically you have to be just super consistent and very not error prone.
Yep.
Like we cannot be giving up a run or giving up momentum in a game because you're turning the ball over, right? Like role players and stars have like totally different leashes when it comes to the NBA. And Chris is like, he's a $10 million expiring contract who in theory is leading the Raptors in box plus minus right now.
Yeah.
Yep. So he's been really effective. And this is not even a career high box plus minus year for him. This is his fourth highest mark ever. He's hit 2, he's hit 2.8, 3.5 before. Like Chris is a really impactful player.
Yep.
In small bursts on the right days. Right.
If you
But if
trade,
you're banking on him for like 20 minutes a night, every night, and expecting him to do this one thing every night, he's not going to do it for you.
Yeah, it's not happening. And if he does end up traded, right, or if we just decide that the $10 million off our books is better than trading him, whatever we decide, but if we do decide to trade him, you are going to need an impactful young player. It is not contract for contract because Boucher is not worth a salary dump, another year, a 2-year, $16 million contract type of guy. Like that is not what we're trading him for. And if that's what we end up getting for him, I'm going to be very, very disappointed. He can go to a contender right now. And I'm not saying fetch like a Tyler Kolek or something like that, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying here. But like an Ousmane Dieng, like something like that can be rehabbed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm not making sense, but like, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Okay, question for you. As a
Yes.
Cleveland, well, I mean, I wouldn't say a Cleveland person, an Ohio person, you've watched a lot of Donovan Mitchell. Who do you think's the better defender? I want to get to this super chat before we get out of here. Who's a better defender, Donovan Mitchell or Devin Booker?
Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's more twitchy, and I think he puts a little bit more effort into the defensive end.
When did this change? Because honestly, Donovan Mitchell was a pylon for years. And this year, I just feel like he's been way better in the 3 games I've watched him. And last year, I was seeing much, much better.
Yeah, I think JB Bickerstaff's a good coach. I think JB Bickerstaff had him going in the right direction, like fundamentally. And then, I just said his name. Got in there, and he's a hell of a coach. Like, I mean, there's probably
Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah, Kenny Atkinson. He and Jordy Fernandez are the 2 coaches to where if we didn't have Darko, that's the coaches I would want leading the team.
That's fair. Yeah, I love Jordy Fernandez. Yes.
So, I mean, I think that dude just coaches his ass off, and I think he's going to get the most out of every single one of his players, and that's what you're seeing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Anyways, man, any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you fitting me in before you had to get off.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Thanks for calling in.
Yes, sir.
As always. Cheers. Okay, so to answer the question, I am firmly on record that Donovan Mitchell is by far the best shooting guard in the NBA. I don't think it's that close between him and Devin Booker. Defensively, 2 years ago, I would have given the clear edge to Devin Booker because I thought Donovan Mitchell was ass on defense in Utah. And his first little stint in Cleveland was not inspiring. But it's worth noting Donovan Mitchell in college was a beastly defender. Really, really active. Got into the ball, got into the passing lanes. He was a really good defender. This year, however, it is clearly Donovan Mitchell is a better defender. And it's not 100% only because he plays with better defenders, because Devin Booker has had some pretty incredible defenders with him as well. Guys like Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges. At no point has Devin Booker eclipsed the height of Donovan Mitchell's current defensive output. You could say that they both had years where they've been kind of ass. They both had years where they're kind of mid, but only one of these guys has ever had years where they've been great. And if the comment is right now, it's definitely Devin Booker, bro. Yeah. Once again, you can say it's system, 100%. Bud's a great defensive coach, though. Like, fantastic defensive coach. Bud has, like, always gotten, like, his teams to be really good defensively. So if the numbers are looking... Bueno Kitty saying, for the webcam funds, the people accusing you of looking high, love the weighted vest take, love the content and insights for PC, pen greater than the sword. Aw, that's nice. Well, people are saying I look high because my lighting is so trash. Hold on, let me fix my lighting. One sec. Is that better? Is that worse? Do I look high? Do I not look high? Am I just sleepy? I have no idea. I do feel like this laptop that I've been using, in light of what happened to my... Is it grainy though? Really? Yo, do you know how much better this webcam is than the one that was on my 2011 iMac? Damn. This is so much better. So this is still bad. I don't know. No, he definitely was a pylon in Utah. Trust me. I looked at his stats in Utah. He was a fourth percentile defender. Actually, so let me put it this way, just to give Slitherman a little bit of like weight to stand on here. Put this into perspective. Between these two players, the absolute most ass defensive season was by far Donovan Mitchell. And the absolute best defensive season was also Donovan Mitchell. It just so happens that this conversation right now is happening in the context of the now. And the now, Donovan Mitchell is a better defender. He's also supposed to be a better defender. He's a twitchier athlete. He's a better athlete. He's got longer arms. There's not a huge size gap between them. You don't play defense with your head in the NBA. And he plays with better defenders. He does. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are beastly, man. They're really good defenders. But it's worth noting, Kevin Durant's a really good defender. Ryan Dunn's a really good defender. Yusuf Nurkic can guard in space at times. Like it's not like Devin Booker's playing with pylons. And Darius Garland, he's been a pretty weak defender for most of his career as well. So yeah. Anyways, I'm glad to have settled that debate. Thank you for the super chat. And Liam here saying, is RJ a rising star or not? Define rising star. Is a rising star 24, 25 years old? If so, then sure, man. I mean, look, Darko is not giving up on him at all. He's got multiple years left on his deal. And I'll guarantee you the player that you have on your roster right now is worth at least 2 times the player you traded for. That's called good asset management, man. 100%. That's great asset management. Yeah. Keon saying, my argument was that he had so much offensive load. Well, I hope that you guys were able to settle your differences without telling each other to, commit fellatio on each other. That was great. I appreciate that y'all can have a debate in the chat. That's cool. It's a really good discussion to have. In my opinion, they are the number 1 and number 2 shooting guard in the league. But yeah. Best case scenario is Cooper Flagg becomes a pre-injuries Grant Hill. That's if he maxes out his potential. I mean, that's a really interesting comparison as well. And I understand that. Also, like the Duke comparison is hilarious. I think there's a little bit of Tatum there. There's a little bit of Grant Hill there. There's a little bit of Kevin Garnett. So ironically, all the same players you would compare Scottie Barnes to. It just so happens that these two can really play together. Anyways, I'll catch you all later. Thank you for tuning in to this live, which, after a tough loss, but a hard fought loss, and definitely one that we can all feel proud of as Raptor fans, I'm sure. All right. I'll catch you all tomorrow on the live stream. We're so close to 11,600 subscribers. We're like this close. I can taste it. We're like 2 subscribers, 3 subscribers away. Be the subscriber to make the difference. I would appreciate it very much. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Oh, also to those of you who've been like, yo, Blue Sky, get a Blue Sky account. I don't know what Blue Sky was, but I got an account today. So now I got 0 followers on Blue Sky. Very lonely over there. Please go follow us on Blue Sky. All right. Take care, guys. Talk to you later.